Queen Dentrellus frantically shouted orders across the bridge of her ship. She didn't know how, but somehow the Gruntals had found their most secure ship. If they died here, their entire species would be lost, and the universe would belong to the Gruntals. Queen Dentrellus could hardly keep her emotions together. In less than 100 years, everything had fallen apart. The collective of sapient life had lived in peace for millennia, sharing and prospering together. Then the Gruntals came on the scene. Since the moment first contact was made, they sent fear echoing throughout the cosmos. Their front-facing eyes, sharp claws, rows of teeth, and impossibly strong physique made them something worth fearing. They were the first predatory species to ever reach the stars, and they made short work of every other species. Queen Dentrellus and those aboard her ship were all that were left. Stragglers from other worlds along with the last of her own people. The ship dubbed Endless Void was the most advanced and secure ship ever built. Queen Dentrellus had ordered its construction herself for this exact scenario. It was built to disappear into the void of space, never to be found again. They were supposed to be safe from the Gruntals here, and yet the Endless Void shuddered as another volley of shots impacted it. Everyone on board were fighting with all they had, trying anything to survive, but it wasn't enough. In their hearts they all knew that this was their last stand, the end of the collective of sapient life, and the start of the reign of the Gruntals. "Hello? Can anyone hear us?" Queen Dentrellus' head shut up as she glanced around. She turned till her communications officer was in view, his fur-covered hands flying over the control panel. "Your Highness, a transmission from an unknown ship coming from deep space," the communications officer yelled. "Put us through to them," Queen Dentrellus yelled. The communications officer nodded, and a few seconds later he motioned for her to proceed. "This is Queen Dentrellus on board the Endless Void. Our ship is full of refugees, several of them the last of their species. We are under attack. Please help us, I beg of you," she shouted. She threw all decorum and pride out the window, not caring if she came across as weak. If it meant the salvation of everyone on her ship, she would gladly do some groveling. "Not so fast," a gravelly voice crackled over the comms. Queen Dentrellus felt her heart sink. She looked at her main display. There, the armored behemoth she knew as the general of the Gruntals' armada stood. "This is General Rekonak, leader of the glorious Gruntals, commanding the mighty Devastator, and those worthless beings are prey. They are weak, and the universe belongs to the strong. They are a plague that needs to be irradiated." "Oh, you guys have video?" The unfamiliar voice came across the channel. "Let me get in on that." On the secondary display, a few seconds of static crackled before an image solidified. Queen Dentrellus felt her stomach plummet in despair. On the screen stood a pale beast. It was bipedal, its only fur on top of its head, with a small patch right below it she assumed was its nose. The being didn't seem too impressive. The strangest feature was its claws, which it waved in the air. Or were they paws? She couldn't quite make up her mind. They seemed soft, with no sharp nails or talons. Her eyes were inevitably drawn back to this new creature's most unsettling trait. Eyes that faced straight forward, boring into her and setting her instincts on fire. "Hey guys," the new being said. "I apologize for not introducing myself earlier. You can call me Sean, and I'm a representative of humanity. I'm a rank general, but you don't have to bother with the formalities. It's a pleasure to meet both of you." The human's lips curled upwards, revealing its teeth. The gesture made Queen Dentrellus shiver slightly. "We're doomed," she said. She didn't intend for anyone else to hear, but the words traveled across the communication channels regardless. Rough laughter came from General Rekonak. "Indeed, now that we've finally found a respectable predator species, the universe can gain her proper rulers," he said. "All that's left is for this pest to be exterminated." "I couldn't agree more," Sean said, a noticeable shift in his tone. Suddenly, the radar detected a huge ship exiting hyperspace, entering the battlefield. The last of Queen Dentrellus' hope evaporated. Escaping the Gruntals was already nigh impossible. Adding these so-called humans to the mix made the extinction of the collective of sapient life a foregone conclusion. On her radar she could see thousands upon thousands of fighters disembarking from the human ship, barreling straight towards the Endless Void. She desperately grasped for any idea that could save the people on board. She was fighting back tears of fear and frustration, and was losing the battle. Tears began dropping from her face. She had failed her people. The harsh laughter from General Rekonak only grew louder. "Your Highness, look," the communications officer said, pointing to the radar display. She almost couldn't bear it, but Queen Dentrellus obliged, opting to face her demise head-on. The shock that greeted her when her eyes fell on the radar screen nearly knocked her over. The endless swarm of human fighters had entered the battlefield. Some were circling the endless void as if they were choking it, but most had positioned themselves between it and the Devastator. That wasn't what nearly floored Queen Dentralis. It was the fact that every single human ship not circling her ship had its weapons aimed squarely at the Devastator. "What?" was all she managed to squeak out, her voice barely audible. "Queen Dentralis, take your ship and get out of here. We set a squadron of fighters on you as a protection detail. Get the refugees to safety," Sean said, the twisted grin now wiped from his face. "We'll handle the pest." "What?" General Rikanek shouted. "What is the meaning of this?" "It's simple," Sean said. "We humans don't take kindly to bullies like you. It's about time you get a taste of your own medicine." On his words, the human fighters swarmed forward, raining down a hailstorm of projectiles onto the Devastator. Its shields were no match for the near-endless barrage. Quickly, swarms of fighters were deployed to combat the human forces, but they were used to fighting against herbivore tactics. They weren't ready to be the ones who got herded and slaughtered. Queen Dentralis was amazed. She could clearly see the predatory instincts in humanity, but to think that they were using them to protect those weaker than themselves. She could see some of the human ships falling, no doubt taking lives with them, and yet the humans pressed on, putting everything on the line to protect a people who they had only met moments ago. "Your Highness," Sean's voice called, tearing her from her thoughts. "I understand you have questions for us. We have some for you, too. We never thought this was how we'd learn aliens were real. For now you need to get out of here, though. Jump to a safe place. Our fighters will ride the wake with you and relay your position to us." As she watched, she could clearly see humanity turning the tide of battle, not only holding the Gruntals at bay, but actively pushing them back. She quickly gave the order, and within minutes the Endless Void jumped through hyperspace to a new star system. True to their word, the fighters orbiting the Endless Void accompanied them, and stayed in a defensive matrix around the ship for the next 37 hours. They finally broke formation when a second ship came out of hyperspace. At first, Queen Dentralis thought the Gruntals had regained control, and made short work of the humans. Her fear dissipated when Sean's voice came across the comms. "Greetings, Queen Dentralis. Sorry that took so long," he said, his voice sounding cheerful. "You managed to escape the Gruntals?" she asked hesitantly. "Escape? Why would we escape?" Sean replied. "You mean you made them retreat?" she asked, barely able to contain her disbelief. "No, why would we let them retreat?" Sean asked, his tone making Queen Dentralis's fur raise slightly. "You destroyed their capital ship?" she asked, part of her fearing the response. "Blew that bastard to smithereens," Sean cheered, the joy returning to his tone. "Now, while I would love to pester you with questions, first we need to get you and yours to safety. If you would please ride the wake of our next hyperjump, we have a world prepped and ready for you. We were going to colonize it, but it seems like you might need it more." "Why are you doing this, going so far to help us?" Queen Dentralis asked, the last of her formal mask falling away as the stress, shock, and confusion grew too great. "You just learned of our existence. You hold no allegiance to us. You're predators, for divine's sake. And yet you went out of your way to protect us, despite it costing several of your lives. You even want to give us an entire habitable world, one of the most sought-after resources in the universe." "It's simple, Your Highness," Sean responded. "Helping those in need, those in trouble, those who can't help themselves, showing compassion. We have a word for that. We call that humanity." Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Everything I use is in the description below. If you have a story you'd like to hear narrated, please let me know and I'll contact the author and we'll see if we can make that happen. Thanks again for watching. It's a scary world out there, but remember to look up and seek the stars.